Hey everyone, this is Hannah with 452. So people have been asking me what an example should for an example concept map. And so I decided that I was going to make one for you, and it took me longer than I thought. I'm going to walk you through what I did in my concept map, and then I just want to point out that I found that I didn't have enough space on one page to include everything. And so just think about, if you want to do a one page or less write up, kind of explaining what you did in your concept map, that might be useful. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to format this. So I really care about aesthetics. And so I had all my lines in the back. So if you click on a shape that you've written in, you can go to bring front, and now that line disappeared into the back. That's just kind of my thing. Okay, and then in terms of getting the shapes and the lines, if you go to insert, and then you can insert shapes, and then you can do different lines, and shapes and that sort of thing. I didn't get too fancy with the types of lines or shapes I used. So I defined family in my own words as a group of people you live with. Family members help and support each other. You will probably want to elaborate a little bit using definitions from some of the readings we've had so far this semester, but be sure to also include at least one short, maybe one or two sentence definition in your own words based on how you've understood family growing up. And then the way that I have designed my concept map is I kind of did half and half with two different colors. So blue is my, quote unquote blood family, and green is my Hanai family. So I'll start with my blood family. So I really focused in on my nuclear family. So my mom, my sister, who I call Sus, my dad. And then I'm pretty close with their families. So I included my brother-in-law and my niece. I included my step parents and my step siblings that I'm close with. That's just for me, like that's who I talk to, like that's who comes to Thanksgiving, birthdays, Christmas, that's who texts me, asks me about my day and vice versa and that sort of thing. I have other aunts and uncles that I thought about including on my mom's side, but I didn't because I ran out of space, to be quite honest. So you might think about, who do you support? Who do you call or text when something really good happens? Or who do you go to for advice when you're struggling with something? Who do you live with as well? You'll notice that this box here from my great aunt Margie has black in it. That means that she passed away. I include her in my concept map of family because out of all my extended family, she was one of the most influential people to me. She inspired me to be a strong woman, a feminist. She always encouraged me in my education. So she's kind of my motivation for completing my PhD and even going back to college in the first place. So I think about her regularly, and she still comes to mind when I think about family and who's important to me. But I wanted to denote that she's passed away. And so that's my blood family. Then I go over here to Hanai family, which I think most of you probably know means your family that's not blood. That's a word we use in Hawaii. We don't really have an English word for that, so, but I know that there are other words in other languages for Hanai that mean the similar things. So my Hanai family on island is all through my significant other, and so that's that connection here. And then it's mostly her nuclear family. So we live in an Ohana house with her mom, who lives downstairs. And until recently, her sister lived with us as well. She just moved out. So these are people that I see every day. They're people that I eat dinner with often and that sort of thing. So that's kind of that. And then we live in a house that her grandma Rosie originally bought. And so I think about Grandma Rosie quite often, even though she actually passed away before I met my partner, because, everything that house sort of symbolizes who she was. Anything from just, doing laundry and the laundry basket says Rosie on it. Something as simple as that I'm doing in my everyday life reminds me of her. And so her presence in that house influences my everyday life, and I included that as part of my family. So I encourage you to think about, like, if you don't know somebody, but they're somehow a part of your family tree and their presence impacts you, do you include them in your definition of family? For me, Grandma Rosie is important. I literally, I live in the house that she bought for her family. So that's something really important to me. And then this box over here kind of looks different because I included our cat, Bandito. So, that's another thing to think about is, do you include pets in your definition of family? So in terms of some of the things that we've been discussing in our class because of the reading, so, how do we define family? Is it just blood relatives, or is it also Hanai, or the idea of Hanai as well? I have a lot of step people in my life that are close to me. And so, we had that TED Talk about the myth of the broken family. And so for me, I don't view the fact that my parents divorced as our family being broken. I think of it as just, having even more people to rely on in my family. I include people who have passed away. Is that something you want to do? What do you think about pets? Do they count? And then finally, I included my significant other. We've been together for a little over 3 years. We live together. We don't really have plans on getting married ever, really. Definitely not anytime soon. And so, do you need marriage in order to consider your significant other part of your family? Does it make a difference in terms of thinking about that connection? If you live together or not, and what does it mean for LGBT relationships? Because I am in a same-sex relationship, getting married for same-sex couples, that's still really stigmatized, even though it is legal, especially with the Trump administration. There's been a lot of roadblocks for same-sex couples. And so does family formation for LGBT families look differently because there are more barriers for same-sex couples in terms of getting married, in terms of our families accepting us and that sort of thing. So that's kind of another thing to think about. Again, this is just one example of what your concept map can look like. So I did everything on Microsoft Word. You can also use pen and paper and then scan whatever you do. And I just learned that there are apps you can download on your phone where you take a picture of something and then the app turns that picture into a PDF. So that could be something that you explore if you do want to complete your concept map by hand. And then regardless of whether you do your concept map electronically or by hand, you'll want to make sure you draw upon some of the stuff we've been discussing because of our class readings. So for me, I didn't have space in between the lines and circles, so I just put a little box at the end addressing things to think about that I would want people who are reading my concept map to think about. And those things relate to the class conversations we've been having. And then you will also probably want to do a one-page write-up explaining your concept map for my benefit. So for me, I didn't do that because I'm making a video for you all, but sort of explaining everything and what these different color codings mean. But you may want to write something up just so that there's some context there for me. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I look forward to seeing your concept maps. Bye, guys.